Hi, I'm Graham and welcome to Man vs Film. Nocturnal Animals is a fantastic movie, but it leaves you kind of wondering what happened with that open ending that it has. And well, this is my explanation of why that came about and what it means. Nocturnal Animals is a tale of revenge, pure and simple. The story is primarily about one character, Susan, played by Amy Adams, and it is all about that person. There are people around her, but every scene focuses on her character. Even the parts of the novel within the movie itself is focused on her perceptions and how it makes her feel and what she reads into it about her past life. Edward, Susan's ex and the novelist, is a character that we never meet. All we know about him is what we garner from the story, the novel within the movie, and from Susan's perspective, her flashbacks to when they first met and various other flashbacks to their relationship. It's always from her perspective, so we never get a true idea of what Edward is actually like. Susan's current life is like a heavy weight around her neck. She's unfulfilled and she's deeply unhappy in her life that she's chosen. Yet it is a life that she thought she wanted, but it's not what she needed. What she needed was her life that she had when she was younger, that life that she had with Edward. But she passed that up. She gave it away for what she thought she needed, what she thought she wanted, which was ultimately unfulfillment, and left her kind of empty. And now, almost 20 years later, she has everything that she thought she wanted. She's got the house, she's got the artistic career, she's got the trophy husband almost, she's got money in the bank, or so it would seem. But things aren't as perfect as they look on the surface. Her husband, for instance, is driven, yes, but not in the way she would want. And it's quite obvious that he's cheating on her as well, and she knows that. The house, they're struggling to keep going. They're having to sell possessions to make the money. And as she says in a scene very early on, she doesn't care about the house, she doesn't care about the money. All she wants is her husband and the love together that they have. It feels like a last gasp, last ditch attempt to try hold on to what she has, even though she knows that this relationship is probably already doomed. The letter and the manuscript from Edward brings forth the thoughts that the life that she rejected, the one that she does actually yearn for now. The novel Nocturnal Animals, the other story within a story, is obviously an allegory for Susan and Edward's relationship. And this novelisation is intercut with Susan's current life and her flashbacks, her memories and her perceptions of her relationship with Edward. Jake Gyllenhaal plays both Edward and Tony, the main character within the novelisation. And this kind of shows that Susan is placing her ex-husband as the main character as she imagines it as she reads the novel. Yet when she's reading the novel, she doesn't see herself in any of the characters. She only sees Edward as Tony, which becomes more telling as the novelisation moves on and becomes more apparent about her. Throughout the movie, Susan is likened to her mother quite a few times, and she takes obvious insult by that. And there's given one scene that she has with her mother, and her mother is very surface. She's got the jewellery, she's got the big hair, she's got the clothes. So her mother's a very surface person, and Susan doesn't like that. She doesn't see herself like her mother at all. She wants the romantic. She wants Edward, the person who is in love with her personality, who just wants to have a life with her and a true romance. But her mother tells her in this scene, that's not what you want. You want roughly what I've got. And in a few years, you're going to see how weak Edward is, and you're going to leave him and it's going to move on, blah, 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 because I know you. Susan takes umbrage to this and she doesn't think this is going to happen. She's actually insulted when she calls Edward weak, and she says that he's not, but that later comes into play later on. But her mother says something very telling at the end of this. We all turn into our mothers in the end, saying that she's probably ended up like her mother and Susan will probably end up like her, even though Susan is determined not to let that happen. Which brings me to the point of the movie, revenge. It is quite literally written on the walls. In one of the scenes when she walks through her gallery, she sees a painting that she can't remember buying which says revenge. It's there in front of her. She looks at it, she contemplates it, and she moves on. It is literally right in front of her face what is happening. Early in the movie, when she gets the manuscript, Susan says to her husband Hunter about trying to get in contact with Edward a few years prior, and Edward just completely ignoring her, not interested, and that's only a couple of years prior. So why, out of the blue, would he contact her? And even furthermore, why would he dedicate the book to Susan? She's intrigued and shocked, and it draws her in and makes her start to think about Edward a little bit more than she possibly should. As Susan starts to read the book, she comes across a scene that's probably the most harrowing scene in the movie, as Tony and his family are tormented on a stranded highway by a trio of menacing men. It's designed to be completely unsettling. It's prolonged to really give that raw tension, to really make you feel anguish, because you know this is not a good situation. You know nothing good is going to come from this. The way the people are acting, they're extremely threatening. They're terrifying. And yes, Tony is weak. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't stand up. He doesn't defend his family. And later on, when we find out that Susan aborted his child and left Edward, it becomes apparent that that's exactly what this scene is. This scene signifies how Edward felt when he found out that Susan was leaving him and had aborted his child. It was heart-wrenching. It was just tore the life from him. And that's how it's depicted. And that's why it's such a prolonged, terrifying scene, because it has to hammer home the point of how he felt at that moment. In fact, Susan even mentions it to a colleague, that she had an ex-husband that she doesn't talk about because nobody knows about this, and she left him in the most heartbreaking and unforgivable way. Again, she says that it's unforgivable. The way she left him was truly terrible. Another key sequence in this movie is the argument that Susan has with Edward after she reads a few pages of his. They've been married for a period of time, and she kind of tears him down. She tells him that you should never put yourself into the story. It's never going to work. It's never going to be interesting. And maybe, just maybe, you should move on into the real world, grow up and try to find another career. She completely tears him down and tells him that he's no good at what he's doing and he'll never amount to anything, and that he should forget about it. Which is strange, because Edward is always telling her, chase that dream. You wanted to be an artist, you go and do it. He's fully supportive of her, and she's completely dismissive of him. But the ultimate act of revenge is the novel itself. It's dedicated to Susan, but it is a violent, reprehensible piece of work where nobody survives in the end. This isn't a happy story. There's no redeeming qualities to it at all. And that itself is an indictment of their relationship and how he has grown to feel about Susan, to dedicate this bleak and terrible story to her memory. Edward has probably crafted himself into the story. That's certainly how Susan sees it. She sees Tony as being Edward, the weak person who can't protect his family when they need it the most, who can't fight for them. But she said previously she'd never be interested in a story where he inserts himself as the main character, but she's captivated. She sends him an email to tell him that she's captivated. She's loving it. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking. It's touching her. Something that years earlier she told him he would never be able to do. And also getting the book published, it's proving again another obstacle that she set up, saying it would never happen. He has done it. He's achieved what he set out to achieve. The character of Tony is a broken man after his family are taken from him. It consumes him. He's looking for justice. He's looking for redemption. He's looking for revenge. He's looking for all the things that he should let go, but he just can't let those things go. And in the end, he does get his revenge, but at a cost. He's blinded. It's very much like an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Revenge is never a happy ending. And ultimately, being blinded causes his own downfall. Does he shoot himself? Does he accidentally fall on the gun? Either way, it leads to his demise. In the story, the guilt really is the ultimate destruction of Tony. It leads his character down a dark path as something that he can't break free from. But writing this story, getting these feelings out, has got to be a cathartic experience for Edward. It allows him to almost move on from this, but ultimately knowing that he still wants that revenge against Susan. He still wants to hurt her the way that he felt he was hurt. Ultimately then, Susan is left waiting for Edward to appear. She's excited, she's hopeful, she may be looking for a reconnection, she may be looking to clear the air, she may be wanting to apologise, but she does have that hope and excitement and nervousness about meeting this old flame and talking about this book that just affected her in such a way. But she never gets that. Edward leaves her hanging as an ultimate statement of revenge. He's done with her. He's written the book and he's going to leave her, like he says early on in the movie, like her mother, with a sadness in the eyes, an unfulfilled life, while he has possibly moved on. That is how I see Nocturnal Animals. It is a beautiful piece of work. It is very nuanced, it is very deep, and I can't wait to see it again. These are the things I've noticed after one watch. More may come apparent after the second, third, fourth watch. This is a tremendous piece of work, and I hope you liked it as much as I did. Like this video, share it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time on Man vs Film.